Fun with Failure.
Hi, this is Dallas. I've got 12 stories I'm going to read today. Funny and embarrassing. I also got some very beautiful images to go along with the stories, so I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. This happened around 5 or 6 years ago. I used to live in a fairly small house. My room was not very large, probably 6 by 8 feet. In this room, both my brother and I resided. To fit in the room, we had to set up some wooden bunk beds. As the older brother, I chose the top bunk. During the summer, it gets freaking hot because I can't afford a window AC unit, so I ran the ceiling fan pretty much 24/7. On one of those days, I decided that I should probably act like a civilized, hygienic human and change my sheets. I take off the sheets, no problem there. Then I have to get the pillowcase off the pillow so that it can be washed. I don't know how y'all do it, but I just grab the closed end of the pillowcase and shake it until the pillow falls out. This is where the frack up happens. As the ceiling is only 2.5 foot above where the mattress is, I decided to lean over the edge of my bed and shake the pillow out onto the floor. As I do that, the fan, still spinning at light speed, hits me on the head. It then propels me forward. I land face first onto the floor and then spewed blood everywhere. This is because head wounds bleed like Niagara Falls. 6 staples to the head later, and ice for the broken nose, I am no worse for wear. But it is painful to say that I wrestled with the fan and the fan won. So, my alarm never went off, making me already late for work. On this day, I had an important presentation in front of some big clients. As I get closer to the office, I see a goose in my way. I didn't think much of it, and I was like, whatever, it's a goose, frack it, he ain't that scary. So I continued. He must have heard that because it made him really mad. As I'm walking by, he does that thing where he opens up his wings and he starts flying at me. Obviously, it scared the crap out of all 5'9" of me, causing me to throw my Starbucks all over myself. It's a good thing I wore white today and didn't have time to go change before our big presentation. I have expected to be punished, but I think my boss might have got a kick out of my story. This frack up happened today and we're still recovering from the unfortunate chain of events. This week was total crap in general. I got into a few fights, and I had to take a sick leave for a pretty nasty case of pink eye. It was bad enough that the doctor thinks that my cornea is somewhat damaged. Just after I got promoted, which is not good, but I digress. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. Okay, now here's the story. Enjoy. I woke up and decided that despite the fact that I cannot stand any kind of light, I shall take my cat to the vet and get her claws shortened. Since I literally can't see crap, I decided to use that brand new cat pack to transport her on my back, rather than the old transporter. Cause hey, that's gonna be easy as long as I don't get hit by a car or something. My pet's gonna be completely safe and sound. I packed the cat in there and she's meowing like crazy all the way to the vet. We got there and it turned out that he peed himself since the journey was so stressful. No big deal. The vet lady helped me clean the backpack and gave me a nappy material to put it on the bottom, so Mr. Cat won't have to go back into a completely damp environment. I pack the cat, pick out some snacks and a nice collar for him, pay, and then I go home. I decided to go to the shop on my way because, thanks to my eye being in pain, I can probably avoid getting out as much as I can during the daylight. That's when I felt it. The smell. My cat pooped in the freaking backpack. People were staring, the cat was meowing, and I was trying to make us invisible. It didn't help that I was buying toilet paper while smelling like crap. We went home and I decided to put the backpack into the shower, with the cat still inside, to see just how dirty it got. Judging by the smell, there is no way I could let him out into the house. My cat is entirely covered in crap. The cat pack was surprisingly clean, thanks to the nappy that the lady gave us. The cat wasn't. It was the most pathetic thing I have seen in a while. I took off my shoes and hopped into the shower. The cat went berserk. I was thinking he might get a heart attack. I accidentally managed to get some of his fur in my pink eye, so I had to use the left one in order to get the job done. Despite Mr. Cat's protest, I washed him good with lots of water. The problem was, I I didn't think to take some of the poop off of him before I got started, so the bigger pieces got stuck in the drain. I got the cat out, dried him up, and then decided to clean the backpack, which had more poop in it. And since you shouldn't be crapping in the shower, the drain got clogged. Now, I'm not easily grossed out. The combination of poop mixed with hair coming from the drain and the cat's crap on my trousers, not to mention the freaking smell, it got to me bad. I felt dizzy, my eye hurt like heck, and I threw up all over where I was standing in the shower. So now I have to take out not only the cat's crap, but also my stomach contents. Since I was doing it with only one eye, it was taking me a long time. I ended up reclogging the drain. The backpack is drying off on the balcony. The cat is hiding somewhere. He's already enjoyed his new snacks though. Now I need a few $1,000s to fix my freaking drain. This happened a couple of days ago. So what happened was that I walked out my back door to see this huge spider. Now for some backstory, I'm from the American Midwest. We have big spiders, but nothing that makes you suicidal big. I'm also deathly afraid of spiders. Okay, so I walk outside, and a freaking tarantula is on the back of my house. I don't know if it was actually a tarantula, but this spider was huge. Here I am, freaking out because I think I'm going to die in my sleep by this spider. So I think to myself, I need to kill this monster. I ran around the house trying to find bug spray or something to kill this thing. Then I see it. It looks at me like a god looking at his servant. A can of WD-40. I grab a lighter and go outside. Then I began to bring hell on earth to the spider. Now, while I'm spraying the spider with this, it decides to run at me. With me being the pansy that I am, I throw the can at the spider and run away. I look back to see that the house is on fire. The can of WD-40 was stuck spraying on the house. So I ran around the house through the front door and grabbed the fire extinguisher. I ran back outside and sprayed the spider with it. Because with the house on fire, the priority is the spider. The spider just gets angry. It runs at me like a giant evil marshmallow wanting to kill me and my family. I ended up hitting this huge spider with the fire extinguisher and smashing its guts all over me. I have won! I have killed the spider! Then I realized my house is on fire. I ended up having to call the fire department and explain why my house was burning. The recent nice weather reminded me that I needed to do some work on my cars, and that in turn reminded me of the time when it didn't work out so well. I've been a gearhead for a while, always learning, but fairly competent. I can't leave any of my vehicles stock, much to my wife's dismay. On this particular occasion, I was upgrading the engine mounts to the stiffer polyurethane mounts, which helps rein in the significant additional power the vehicle is making. Bouncing an engine on soft stock mounts leads to broken stuff. The rear mount is sandwiched between the engine and transmission, so it's an awkward spot. I do all of my work on jack stands. I'm just an enthusiast. No automotive lift or air tools, etc. But not a whole lot of room to get the optimal angle on things. Motor mounts need to have their bolts torqued pretty high. This one is there to stop the rotational force and help support the weight of the entire drivetrain. It was some hefty hardware, working with just ratchets and without enough room to fit a long-handled torque wrench, or anything really. There I was, laying on the ground under the car, basically pulling most of my own weight up by the wrench handle to get it tight. It was then that the ratchet slipped off. I didn't have it fully on the bolt, or it slipped while I was pulling, whatever. The result was, at the peak of my personal torque pull, the ratchet lets go and I punch myself square in the upper lip and nose, hard. It felt harder than I've ever been punched by actual punches, with what essentially was a ratchet-weighted brass knuckle. This started a quick chain of events. My reaction from the blow was to throw my head back, which caused me to whack the heck out of it on the cement below, which in turn causes the back of my head to light up in pain. This ended up making me thrust it forward again, right into the cross members, part of the engine cradle that supports the front end stuff. These were all automatic motions, like a knee-jerk reaction. My skull became a pinball of pain, and I didn't have control of it. It all probably took less than a second, or half a second even. But it was a rapid series of self-inflicted impacts that left me bloody and laughing underneath my car. I was wondering why the heck I was still into this hobby. I still have a slightly visible scar on my forehead, and my front teeth hurt for months afterwards. I had just come out of an exam at university and was walking home, while at the same time texting my boyfriend. I was still okay at this point. I've done this many times with no issues. My frack up began here. I realized that I was thirsty, so I got out my water bottle, one of those with the cap that you just pop up, and started drinking hands-free while texting my boyfriend. The shortcut to my house involves cutting through the field that my horses live in. I decided to pay them a visit. I stopped drinking so I could have a hand free to get over the fence, and did so absolutely fine. I see my horses, give them some treats, and make my way to the other side of the field. I decided that I was thirsty again, so I went hands-free with my water so I could reply to some text. Instantly, that is when all went wrong. In my urgency to do everything at once, I hadn't noticed a large dip in the field, and I proceeded to fall over. But I didn't just fall over. I went down in a dramatic fashion and landed face first in a pile of horse crap. My chin compressed a water bottle and it sprayed down my top. At this point I thought it couldn't get any worse. However, as usual, I was wrong. My horses came charging over because they probably thought I killed over and died. One of the clumsy oafs ended up standing on my arm. When I finally got home, the cat greeted me with a look of complete and utter condescension and scorn. Even more than usual. I'm in bed and everything hurts, and I'm slightly cursing myself now that my boyfriend is home. He has no idea about this, and if he ever does find out, he will be laughing at me for at least a week. Alright, here we go. This happened last Saturday around 9 p.m. Let me preface this by saying that I am known to be pretty clumsy. Additionally, I broke 2 mirrors in my dorm room last semester, so I'm not exactly the luckiest person either. On Saturday, I had gotten up relatively early, napped all afternoon, and woke up at night with a fierce hunger. I was heating up some leftovers in the kitchen, and I needed a fork. My family moved to this house while I was away at school, so I'm not entirely familiar with it yet. On top of that, they're renovating the entire house to make it feel more like home. They took out the old cabinets and counters and replaced them with these new, really nice wooden ones. My mom loves those cabinets so much. She told me all about how she came to find them and the whole story behind getting them while she drove me home from college. I started looking through all the drawers in the kitchen for forks, or at this point, any utensil. I was looking in the cabinets too, because that's where we often kept plastic spoons. At this point, I just wanted to eat my food, which was steadily cooling in the microwave. At this point, I moved from one half of the kitchen to the other. This is where my parents installed more cabinets for additional storage. I checked the drawers over there and didn't find anything. So I checked one cabinet, and still nothing. That's when the disaster happened. I moved to the other cabinet and checked it out. I didn't even open it when both cabinets suddenly fell off the wall. All I hear is the loudest sound ever. Since these are heavy wooden cabinets falling onto marble countertop, the one that I checked earlier flopped off the counter onto the floor, in the process shattering all the plates and mugs within it. The other cabinet, the one that I had yet to open, it stayed on the counter, although it fell into a pack of small glass light bulbs and a small TV that my mom used to watch TV on while cooking. Needless to say, I broke both of those things. Luckily, I was in the corner of the kitchen and had my hand on one of the counters, so nothing fell on me. I honestly would have died if the cabinet hit me. Because of the incredibly loud sound, my parents came running. My dad gave me a big hug probably because I wasn't dead. I apologized, and they told me it wasn't my fault because, obviously, it wasn't properly anchored to the wall. Honestly, it's better that it was me than my parents who knocked it off, since I wouldn't have wanted them to gotten hurt while cooking or anything. At the time, I was naturally very freaked out and nearly in tears. They just reheated my food and sent me to my room to eat, cry, and calm down while they cleaned everything up. To this day, I'm honestly kind of paranoid of cabinets, especially with the ones that still remaining on the walls, which my parents promise are anchored correctly and safely. I'm really cautious. I've only opened one once, and it was kind of terrifying. The cabinets that fell haven't been put back yet, and I probably won't use them once they are. I should probably also add that on that morning of Mother's Day, I somehow managed to crack my MacBook screen. I've gotten a rainbow colored line on it now. I think that the bad luck from the mirrors are finally catching up with me. My friend, his parents and I all went to eat for my dad's birthday a few months ago. Me and my friend finished our meal early, so his mom gave us $10 and a milk coupon to run to Mayors and pick up a shower mirror and a gallon of milk. This mayor was unfamiliar to us, so we ended up wandering around a while to find our stuff. He had to poo the entire time. Finally, my friend tells me that he couldn't hold it anymore, so he ran off to find a restroom while I finished looking for the stuff we needed. 10 minutes pass and I'm standing near the self-checkout, waiting for him to show up, when finally he walks up behind me. I noticed he seemed a bit nervous. The first thing he says to me is, "Hey, so we're bros, right?" I respond, "Yeah, I guess so. Why?" He looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "I crap myself, dude." At first I thought it was a joke, but then he pulled his hand out of his pocket, revealing a crap-covered $10 bill, coupon, and his palm. He says, "Dude, I couldn't find a bathroom. It just slipped out." When I asked him what he did with the crap, he looked around to make sure nobody was listening and said, "I threw it in the shelf and ran." This was the icing on the cake. I laughed hysterically in the dead center of Mayor. He left to clean up while I delicately handled the non-crap covered side of the bill. We left to find his parents waiting outside. They were pretty mad that we were so late. When he came up short on change, his mom asked why we didn't use the coupon. He pulled it slightly out of his pocket and said, I don't know exactly how to tell you this, but..." Before he could finish, he interrupted with an angry, "You lost a coupon, didn't you? This is why I can't trust you to do anything for me." He slid the poo-splattered coupon back into his pocket and muttered, Yeah, I lost it," with relief. I couldn't contain my giggling the whole way home. He was terrified that he'd end up on the news or something. Today, when I got home from work, my wife and I decided to make some burgers. Upon removing the bag of frozen burger patties, we discovered that the patties were very stubbornly frozen together. Of course, this is an opportunity to show off my strength. I tried to pull them apart, still stuck. After much cussing and beating them on the counter, I decided the only reasonable option left for me was to pry them apart with a, wait for it, butcher knife. My wife saw what I was doing and she warned, "That doesn't look safe. Please don't do that." "I'll take that into consideration, sweetheart," was my sarcastic reply. Well, it worked. The burgers came apart. Unfortunately, the force carried the knife right through and into the soft, tender spot between my thumb and forefinger. Now, I'm sitting in urgent care waiting for stitches. And I never got a burger. Sometimes it's good to swallow your pride and listen. Otherwise, stuff like this happens. I love my Samsung phone, and more than that, I love the VR gear headset that came with it. The thing is pretty freaking amazing and fun. I would spend hours playing with it. And my wife, who is completely technologically illiterate, she wanted to see what all the fuss was about. One Friday night we had some friends over for some VR fun. Everyone took their turn, and my wife went last. I had downloaded a VR roller coaster for everyone to try. All of my friends sat on the couch during the simulation. I wanted something extra special for my wife's first time. So I took one of my copper kitchen chairs, they're about as tall as a bar stool with a back, and I had her sit down on it. When the simulation started, I jerked and rumbled the chair along with the ride. When the coaster went right, I leaned to the right, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. She was loving it, squealing and screaming, really feeling the ride. The big finale was coming up, where the roller coaster went up, up, up to the final climax and going straight down. So, like a good husband, I mimicked what I saw on the screen, pulling her chair back as far as it could go for the ascent, and then pushing her chair forward quickly as the roller coaster descended straight down. And straight down my wife went, face to the floor. She was so immersed in the simulation that she didn't even know she was flying face first into the floor. So she didn't even put her hands out to break her fall. Nope, just straight up face to the floor. Smack! My poor wife, with her hands to her side, face planted on the floor, was letting out loud moans. The best way to describe the way she sounded was like an angry cat ready to scratch. I quickly picked her up and pulled off the VR headset to greet her with 2 bloodshot, bruised eyes. I felt terrible. Our friends didn't know what to do. Everybody was kinda dumbfounded. By the way, I forgot to mention that the in-laws were also there. This is the first time visiting since we got married. Epic fail. I got my poor wife some ice and some aspirin, and we sent everyone home so she could go to bed. The next morning, I woke up and rolled over to see what the damage was, and she looked just like a raccoon. 2 perfectly black eyes. I mean black. Blacker than black. When she woke up and looked at herself in the mirror, she wasn't very happy. She was pretty angry with me, and we got into a pretty loud conversation over it. There was some yelling, and then she did some crying, mainly because her eyes hurt so bad. This whole story would have been bad enough without the rest of the details I'm about to give you. My wife and I live in an apartment, and we live above the leasing office, which was open during the morning of the heated exchange. The walls are paper thin, and my manager is a female. Needless to say, she could hear the fight. Right after our fight, my wife and I needed to go to town. We went downstairs, walked out our door, and our manager was standing right there. Front row seats to see a couple of shiners on my wife's face, plus tear-stained cheeks for added condemnation. She gave a concerned look at my wife, and my wife pleasantly, but awkwardly, tells her, "I had an accident. I fell. I'm okay, really." The apartment manager shot me a death glare. "No, really, she's okay. Yeah, we have to go now. We're late." I did the walk of perceived shame to my car. I could feel her eyes burning a hole in the back of my head. Later, my wife explained the whole thing, but I don't think she bought it. I was chilling one day by myself in my apartment. This was because my lovely roommate went out for a few hours to meet his mom for lunch. It was graduation week, so I thought I'd be nice and get the wrinkles out of his gown for him because I'm a good person. So I hung the gown in his bathroom and turned the shower on to steam it. I've used this method a bunch of times to get the wrinkles out of my own clothes, mainly because I'm lazy and I don't want to get the iron out, and it usually works wonders. Needless to say, I completely forgot about it. I watched a movie, I played video games, I took a nap, you know, the usual. He comes home about 6 hours later and says, "Hey dude, why is the shower on?" I say, "Oh frack," and explain my generosity and how good a friend I was. We open the door and all the walls, ceiling and floor is covered with thick water droplets. It was actually quite beautiful. I got my towel and dried the entire room. The gown was soaked, but luckily it dried later in the day. So despite my frack up, the crisis was averted. This happened about a year ago, but when I still think about it, it makes me cringe. I was flying to Hawaii on my first flight in several years. It ended up being the longest flight I have ever endured. I had just settled in after takeoff and chatted a little with the man next to me. He was a frequent traveler and very nice. I decided to get out my special K smoothie that I bought right after security. Shook it a little, opened it, forgot that I opened it, and shook it again. I have no idea why I did that. The smoothie went everywhere. It mostly got in my hair and on my personal items, but a generous portion got on the guy next to me. He didn't talk to me for the rest of the flight. I tell you what, dried strawberry smoothie in your hair smells awful. It pays to be observant. Now I think I've turned a potential friend into an enemy. I hope you enjoyed those stories. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more content. If you have a funny and embarrassing story you'd like to share, just send it to me at funwithfailure@gmail.com and I will put your story into a video. Thank you for your time and I hope you have a lovely day.